been more than 25 years since Nirvana released their last full-length record together as a band, In Utero. And then suddenly they find themselves in the public eye again thanks to Post Malone doing a COVID-19 set playing all Nirvana tunes, dresses and all. Now, how do I want to celebrate that? I want to talk about probably one of the greatest records of all time, Nevermind by Nirvana. Post Malone got Travis Barker, one of the best drummers of all time, to play Dave Grohl's parts, who is also another one of the best drummers of all time. I think he did a really good job. I mean, you know, it was cool, they wore the dresses, he nailed it, he had Travis Barker, the end. That's pretty much all I can say. Good job, Post. For me, Nirvana in general, but specifically Nevermind, was a very important record. I think it touched the lives of a bunch of disaffected youths all over the world. Let's talk about the record cover. It's controversial to say the least. There's a nude baby being fished for with money on the front cover of one of the most popular records of all time. Probably the coolest and also the weirdest thing about this record is, like, every time I have a different favorite song. Sometimes it's Breed, sometimes it's Drain You, sometimes I just want to listen to the banger of a tune that Smells Like Teen Spirit was and is. And I think that's okay. I was gonna talk about like what my actual favorite song is off the record, but there's too many to choose from. So an interesting fact about this record, Nevermind, is that it was gonna be called Sheep. Now, that kind of sums up what you think Kurt Cobain thought about the general public. I wonder why he was so upset about how good his record was doing. So it sold over 30 million copies worldwide. Sorry, my phone's blowing up. It's just this girl that I've been talking to. Just ignore it. It sold over 30 million copies worldwide, which is making it one of the best-selling albums of all time. I'm pretty sure that like Michael Jackson was on the charts at the same time and this knocked off whatever record he had out. Maybe it was Black and White. But essentially, if you knock off the king of pop from his king's throne, which is the top of the charts, and you're a lowly, poorly, sad grunge band from Seattle, I think you're doing really good. And the best thing about listening to Nirvana is that it's rock and roll music that's as catchy as children's songs, but you know, it's about drug use, booze, depression. Polly got a lot of bad press at the time because essentially it's about a lady being tied up and abused. And that's not cool. But I think when Kurt was writing songs about nasty stuff, like in Utero, there's a song called Rape Me. And in Heart-Shaped Box, he talks about eating someone's cancer. He's talking about it maybe for a little bit of shock factor, but also for a little bit of like awareness that this stuff happens. Because there was no way that he was that bad of a person that he thought it was a great idea. He was trying to bring light to those really edgy and uncomfortable issues that people don't like to talk about. And so for that, I think that makes Kurt/Nirvana even more important. Because we need a little bit more of that now. So Butch Vig, who played drums for Garbage, actually produced the record Nevermind. And he convinced Kurt Cobain to double track his vocals. That was not a thing that was kind of done. That was a more slick, kind of professional, and also a very sort of 70s and 80s move. And Nirvana were obviously trying to get away from the 70s and the 80s because of the big bombastic stuff that they did on those records. But the way that Butch got to convince Kurt was he said John Lennon used to double take his vocals. And Kurt was a massive John Lennon fan. So, needless to say, he double tracked his vocals. It was on high rotation for me on the school run with my mum. I had the cassette, then I had the CD when we got a car that had a CD player. It was dope. It was a really good time. Until, in fact, the day that I found out that Kurt Cobain died, which I believe, I should actually check this, but I believe it was in 1994, and he died on my birthday. So of course I made it about myself, because that's what you do when you're a child. It's never about the person that's tragically died in a lethal heroin overdose / shotgun wound to the face. It's about you and your connection that you had with that record and that musician. And speaking of lethal heroin dose, 3 times a lethal limit of heroin does not enable you to put a shotgun to your face and pull the trigger. And I'm not saying that she did it, I'm just saying that he probably didn't. The thing about Nirvana as a whole is they were just a cool band. They accepted everyone. It was cool to be disaffected. It was cool if you want to take drugs. It was cool to be gay. And it started a whole movement. Like, there would be no grunge if there wasn't Nirvana. And I guess Nirvana would say there would be no Nirvana if there wasn't Pixies. But that's another video. So a fun fact about Nirvana that maybe people don't know, but I know, is that they had a guitarist who was with them in the 80s and toured with them in the 90s, and he's now part of the Foo Fighters. That man's name is Pat Smear. Pat Smear. Interestingly enough, when Nirvana did the MTV Unplugged special, he chose lilies as the flowers that he wanted around the stage. And this wasn't too long before he passed away. And lilies are a funeral flower. It's kind of quite telling. Maybe he knew he was going to die. Maybe he kind of predicted his own future in that way. And there's one moment in the MTV Unplugged film where he sort of like has one of those, I don't know, 1,000-mile stares on him, and it looks like he's realized he's gonna die. And if you ever watch it, you'll see it. You'll see it because it is the most stunning shot of Kurt Cobain you will ever see. And it's this moment of realization. It's both beautiful and really, really saddening at the same time. Just like him as a person, I suppose. One of the coolest things I like about the MTV set is that Dave Grohl is playing with hot rods because he literally does not know how to play drums softly, so they give him the next thing up from brushes. But Dave, a turtleneck in the MTV video, a turtleneck. One of the best things, as I was saying, about Nirvana, and specifically Kurt himself, is that he really was an accepting human being and exceptional at that. In fact, he wrote a quote which I had to write down because I've got a poor memory. And it's on the In Utero album, and it's like a disclaimer. And it says, if you're a sexist, racist, homophobe, or basically an asshole, don't buy this record. I don't even care if you love me, I hate you. Now that's a pretty badass statement.